an Unspoiled Network podcast.
This is Spoil Me, covering Red Rising Series, Book 3, Morning Star, chapters 56 through 59. In Time, Luna, Fading Light, and the Lion of Mars. In these chapters, welcome to Spoil Me. Welcome to the show, everyone. I'm Natasha. In this episode, I will be finding new and creative ways to say fuck you to Pierce Brown. It's like if I say I'm going to riot, it's like I manifest it. You guys, I knew eventually, I knew this would happen. I knew it had to. Severo can't make it. Not in a story like this. With some types of stories, types of writers, sure. But no, not here. That's not how he goes, right? But it's the way. He just was so mean about it. It was mean-spirited. I read this morning, and I came home from running errands, listening to it, and I kind of bit Owen's head off, and he was like, "Are you okay? What's wrong?" I was like, "I'm sorry. I'm just really cranky because something very bad happened in a book I'm covering, and it's got me in a mood." And he was like, "Oh." Like, I don't even know where to start. I really don't. Okay, we'll just start with the little visit from the jackal in this recording. Okay, so first of all, I have to acknowledge that Darrow says that he can almost smell the, quote, pencil shaving scent of the jackal. Have we heard that before? I don't remember it being described that he smells like pencil shavings, and maybe it has, but that's like such a strange... I don't know what to do with that. That's a really specific scent. And I can't imagine why he smells like that. That's so strange. And I'm like, would I be able to even tell that's what I was smelling? If I encountered somebody with that scent, would I be able to place it? Like, the whole thing is just really weird. The background behind him is blurred. I don't know if that's supposed to be sort of a hint that he's not where he says he is, but I don't think so necessarily. So he gets in touch and is like, I decided to initiate after, the little message I left you, killing your uncle. You saw Roke before he died? Did he weep for your forgiveness? And Darrow says no, and the jackal is, it seems to me, genuinely a little taken aback by that. And he's like, I really thought he would. And then to think he was right there when I took his girl. You went running by in the hall screaming Tactus's name, and he looked up in confusion. I pushed a sliver of Quinn's skull deeper into her brain with my scalpel. I thought about letting her live with brain damage, but the thought of her drooling everywhere made me sick. You think he would have still loved her if she drooled? Which is actually not a terrible question, but I think he would, because that is the type of guy Roke was. I just think that he would just stand by her and it would be this tragic thing, but he would, there is a weirdness to this though, that the jackal seems to almost be like, I was merciful. I don't really feel like that's what he's saying exactly. It's much more like, it feels a lot more sort of despicable and contemptuous than that. But I can't tell at this point how much of that is actually him and how much of this is him taking on a sort of character at this point, because there's a lot of stuff that Darrow says later about the way that he is behaving that is sort of aping Darrow. And so I don't know. So Mustang comes in at this point, but he can't see her yet. She's still off camera. And the jackal actually, when Darrow says Roke wasn't perfect, but he was still a better man than a lot of folks out there, and the jackal says it's easy to forgive the dead, I know. A tiny spasm of humanity moves across his lips. He may never say it, but the very tone of his voice tells me he is not without regret. I know he wanted his father's approval, but could it actually be that he misses the man? That he's forgiven his father in death and now mourns him? I don't know, man. Probably. Does it matter? I don't know. And he has the baton that Darrow ordered for him a while ago. He says, all my life I've been given lions, nothing of my own. What does it say about me that my greatest enemy knows me better than any friend? You the scepter, I the sword, I say, ignoring his question. That was the plan. I gave it to him because I wanted him to feel loved, to feel like I was his friend. So this is the gift that he opened the box and kind of got moved for a moment and looked at Darrow and said, thank you. The whole while me reading it was going, this isn't right. He knows something. Something's wrong. We're finally finding out what was in the box, which, what a fucking long play. I really want to know, did Pierce Brown know what it was going to be in the box when he wrote that scene? Or was he planning on sort of leaving it as we don't need to know? Or and then decided, you know what, I'm going to tell people? Or did he have it all planned out? I don't know. So then Darrow asks if basically doing his dad's job is everything he thought. And he says no. And Darrow says, you want to be hated, don't you? That's why you killed my uncle when you didn't need to. It gives you purpose. That's why you called me, to feel important. But I don't hate you. And Darrow says, I pity you. And he recoils. And I was truly a little surprised, because the I don't hate you, I pity you is a very almost trite sentiment at this point, the trope of saying this. And I really thought he would have been better prepared for somebody lobbing it at him. But Darrow's thesis here is basically, I feel bad for you because you don't know who you are and are broken. And everything you do is you trying to find approval from somebody to get enough power to feel like it matters. All of this is you trying to fill this hole, and nothing is ever enough. And his sister finally steps in and tells him, you don't know, you don't understand. Darrow was very content as a Red with his wife and to have a child. He was happy. He doesn't have that endless sort of hunger in you. In him that you have. However, something that the jackal says does seem to... He says, I saw when you rode that triumphal chariot, it's that hunger that makes us forever alone. And that seems to, like, these days, really touch a nerve for Darrow. What Mustang says is true about who Darrow was, but he's not that person anymore, and I'm not sure the jackal's entirely inaccurate here. And of course he has to call Mustang a whore, spreading your leg. Like the default go-to of any angry man when dealing with a woman is to slut shame. It's just the most boring, of course, he has to say it. And she is trying to tell him, like, I loved you, we were bound. And then I found out that you had Claudius killed, and I just can't forgive that. And then, of course, Darrow has to do his speech. We are coming for you. We will break your ships. We will storm Mars. We will burrow through the walls of your bunker. And he just turns it off. And we find out that's not where he's going at all. He's trying to throw the jackal off. But as we discover later, the jackal is not fooled and knows what Darrow is about to do. That's unfortunate. So the two of them have a moment, Darrow and Mustang, and they just hold each other, and it ends with this moment that I actually really liked. I tilt her slender jaw up with my hand so that she's looking at me. I was going to say something important, something memorable, but I've forgotten it in her eyes. That gulf that divided us is still there, filled with questions and recrimination and guilt. But that's only part of love, part of being human. I really like that line of just like, all of that stuff doesn't mean you don't love somebody. It's actually part of loving somebody. That just kind of like, how sometimes the way somebody phrases a thing, it just sort of clicks into place in your brain and you're like, yes, yep, okay, there it is. I feel like I'm going to remember that. It's funny to me because the next line is the one that's highlighted by like a lot of people, according to my Kindle, 5,000 people. But it's the line before that I thought was the most moving. But then the line that's highlighted is, everything is cracked. Everything is stained, except the fragile moments that hang crystalline in time and make life worth living. Which is also a great line. But if, like, I don't know. The previous one is just the one that spoke to me more. So, we start chapter 57, Luna, approaching the core. And even though they are outnumbered and outgunned, Darrow is still thinking, we are coming at them like, with the element of surprise, so we have that advantage. And there is a really, really funny moment where they get a transmission being like, identify yourselves and your purpose, and Darrow says, fire a long-range missile, and the Blue is like, well, they're just going to shoot it down, and Severo's like, he fucking knows that. Listen to, do what he says. I was just like, yeah, dude, this is the answer to the question, like, obviously. So Darrow of Lycos, says this image, are you in possession of Imperium over this war fleet? What need have I of your traditions, I ask. Very well, the gold says, maintaining propriety even now. I am Archlegate Lucius Aus Janus of the Praetorian Guard, First Cohort. I am come with a diplomatic envoy to your coordinates. I request you stay further aggression and give my shuttle access to your flagship so we might relate the Sovereign and Senate's intentions in... Denied. I beg your pardon? If any society ship comes toward my fleet, they will be fired upon. If the Sovereign wishes to speak with me, then let her do it herself, not through a lackey's mouth. Tell the hag we're here for war, not words. So he's really feeling like, I'm doing something here, and this is what makes the whole thing so agonizing. So he goes and sees, let's see, I thought it was, oh my God, what is this blue's name? Rasper? Let's see, I'm trying to find if that is her, like, if she is the blue. Orion is the one that I'm thinking of. Meaty hands clasped behind her back, skin nearly as dark as her black uniform. She turns to me with those large, pale eyes and that nasty white smile. Is she a blue? I can't recall. I don't remember ever hearing Rasper's name before. So that's one, like, this was something that sort of caught my attention and made me wonder, is Rasper the spy? Like, because Darrow is aware, due to just how war works, but also due to a comment that Jackal makes about enjoying the festivities. He knows somebody in his fleet is giving away information. And it's funny because, like, despite being given this little hint that the Jackal knows what's going on, he sort of hand waves it. And I think I understand why. It's sort of the thing that Jackal is trying to do, it feels like, in that moment, is just like sow seeds of uncertainty, make you paranoid, you know. But it really does feel like Darrow is just operating under the assumption that the Jackal does not have any real important information. And I guess to a degree, you kind of have to operate that way after a point. Like, you can't second guess everything. But it made me kind of consider later, like, well, who is the one telling on him? And Rasper just sounds scary and weird. And I have never heard her name before. And I just kind of want her to be the one that is telling on him. But anyway, so she's the one who's like, there's flight clearance for a shuttle. That's weird. What's going on with that? And he's like, I'm sending an emissary to meet with senators. And she's like, yeah, the fuck you are. What's happening? And he tells her the truth, that they're going to be releasing Cassian. And she's like, dude, are you fucking for real? If the Obsidians find out, and he's like, they won't. This is why I haven't told anybody. You need to clear the shuttle and not cause any trouble. Promise me. And she does. He does not, of course, realize that he is signing his own capture, his own warrant. I won't say death warrant, even though one could argue that. Oh, it was Orion talking to him. Wait a minute. I'm so confused, you guys. It was Orion that he was talking about. Where's the name? Did I just make that up? I'm so distracted, you guys, because of what happens later. I'm so sorry. Oh, that whole conversation was Orion. That wasn't... I'm looking through, and now I'm like, did I just misread the word Reaper and think that that said Rasper? Jesus Christ. Somebody send the fucking emergency to me, because I need to have my... Shit's not great, guys. So, Severo is part of this plan. Understandably. You're not going to let Cassius go and not have Severo's okay. That would be fucked up to do. Not telling the Obsidians is one thing, you know? So, we go in to speak to Cassius, and it turns out that Antonia is there listening as well. And I am so paranoid, guys, that them just saying, oh, we're here at Luna, not at Mars, in front of Antonia was getting me very twitchy. But it turns out, like, it doesn't even really matter. And they tell Cassius that they're letting him go. And Antonia is just like, you guys, come on. And Cassius, don't you fall for this. They're fucking with you. Of course they're fucking with you. And Cassius isn't acknowledging either Darrow or Severo, only Mustang, which at the time I was willing to just allow, but I feel like that's kind of a sign in the midst of everything that he isn't where he's pretending to be meant. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I feel as if, because I was really, really trying to give Cassius credit. You know, Mustang describes him as having been emotional at Severo's forgiveness. He and Darrow have like a real moment together of bonding. I kind of have to admit that I love just a drop that he isn't won over, because that is, it just shows such a commitment that is unflappable in the face of the evidence of who he's working with versus the type of person he's working against. And that is like, this type of personality is very much out there. All the evidence can be there that you are with the bad guys. And it just doesn't matter to some people, because it's the ideology that matters much more than the deeds of the people they are aligned with for some reason. I can't understand that. For me, it's absolutely the deeds of the people I'm aligned with before anything else, because the ideology, if those deeds don't match, then none of it's real. You know what I'm saying? It doesn't like, but Cassius really seems to be of the mind that, like, sure, the Jackal is a bad man, and sure, this is all like looking like I'm with the baddies, but it's for the greater good of the society, and ultimately the tenets and dogma that I have been taught will win out despite people like him, which is just the thing that people tell themselves, and that's not ever how it works. It never does. But folks really, like, you know, they'll just be like, yeah, I'm aligned with Nazis, but I don't believe what they believe. We're just going to work together until we reach a common goal, and then it'll be fine. No, that's never ever been how it goes. And people just fucking tell themselves these fairy tales. And so it makes sense. But also, guys, and I'm really hesitant to say this because I know I sound very optimistic here, almost to the point of like naivete. I am so hoping that there was a point earlier in the previous section where Mustang shares a plan with them, and then they all laugh and try and point out all the ways that it could go wrong, and then we don't hear what it is. And I am like desperately hoping this turns out to be true. Like, this is this is part of their plan. I know it's asinine. The whole time that I was like reading the last two chapters in this section, I was just like waiting for, I was basically waiting for the author to go, just kidding. You know, like, you know that feeling of just like, well, where's the rescue? Obviously this isn't going to happen. Obviously we're not doing this. So, and I genuinely, like, it doesn't make any sense because Severo dies. I don't see any plan in which that happens. I don't know if it's like, well, that was the thing that went wrong, but mostly the plan is still intact. I have no idea. But if this were supposed to be how this goes, in terms of like him capturing them and taking them, then I don't know. I have no theory on what is supposed to happen after that. And it would depend on Darrow being certain and Mustang being certain that Cassius hasn't been won over to their, not to their side even, but to not continue taking action against them. And it has really felt to me like he believes that Cassius is done, that he isn't going to continue to fight. He may just be saying this, but I really felt like Darrow had been lulled into a place of moderate trust with Cassius. So if I were to assume that this was part of a plan, it means that Darrow was a lot more canny about Cassius' state of mind than I expected, or than Darrow shared in his own head with us as readers, which is certainly possible, and I don't dislike that idea, but that's a really, really big if. And I'll be honest, Darrow very rarely thinks in absolutes in his own head in terms of the people that he trusts and doesn't. There's a couple of rare people, Severo being one of them, that he reserves that kind of thinking for. And he's never actually said anything about trusting Cassius or really feeling like Cassius is letting go. It's always just been about, I have personal affection for him. I wish things could be different. I still care about him. Couldn't we leave the past in the past? All of that is a very plaintive feeling, but it's not trust. It's affection and it's love, but not trust. And it may be that he never thinks that because he really doesn't. But I've been taking all of those sentiments to mean that he believes in Cassius. And maybe I've just been wrong to do that. So eventually Mustang says, I know you've seen what revenge brings, what Octavia really is, what my brother really is. You're only guilty of trying to protect your family. You don't deserve to die here. And he's just sort of like, where do I go? And she's just, anywhere, not here. And he says, on my father, on Julian, I promise not to raise arms against any of you. If you let me go, I will leave and I will never come back. Antonia, meanwhile, is distraught that he's taking this deal. And Antonia is like, when you get up, they're just going to pop you in the back of the head. And I was sort of like, they could just shoot him now anyway. Like, why would they need to set him up to take this fake deal and then kill him? That doesn't even make sense, Antonia. What do you mean? It's just that she's like, she is somebody who toys with people in such a way that she assumes other people do that as well, even though there's not really anything in that beyond her own amusement. You know, she just doesn't understand what people are like. So Cassius is released and he shakes Darrow's hand. Mustang extends her hand, but he won't shake hers. He really had wanted to hug her, and she won't let him do that. And then he holds out his hand to shake Severo's and says, I don't know if your father was right, but he was brave. I'm sorry that he's not here. And Severo gets teary-eyed. And this happens so fast, you guys. Severo blinks hard at the hand, wanting to hate it. This does not come easy for him. He's never been a gentle soul, but he does his best, and he takes the outstretched hand. They shake, but something feels wrong. Cassius won't let go. His face is cold, eyes unforgiving. His body rotates so fast I can't stop him from jerking back on Severo's hand, pulling my friend's smaller body forward toward him just as he swivels his hip, bringing Severo to his right armpit like they're dancing so he can strip Severo's pistol from his leg holster. Severo stumbles, fumbling for the weapon, but it's already gone. Cassius shoves him off and stands behind him with the scorcher pressed to his spine. Severo's eyes are huge, staring at me in fear. Darrow! Cassius, no! I shout. This is my duty. Cassius. Mustang takes a step forward, outstretched hand trembling. He saved your life, please. He orders them to their knees. And Antonia is shouting, shoot the bastard. Cassius says to Severo, on your knees again. And Severo says, the fuck I will. And tries to grab his razor and spin, but he is not fast enough. Cassius shoots him in the shoulder, and then unloads into his chest 6 times. And later it's said definitively that Severo is dead by, I think, somebody checks once they are abducted. Guys, please say psych. Please say psych. Please let Severo not really be dead. Can we just do a take back seas on this real quick? This is one of those things where I'm just like, look, I want there to be stakes and everything. I want to believe that main characters can die. I respect that. I need it. Also, though, please don't. Please do not. I don't like it. Like, this whole thing, and it's all like made worse by the fact that Antonia is sitting on the sidelines cackling and eating fucking popcorn and Junior Mints, delighted. Like, it's just like, I hate her so much, and I am so afraid of her because she's genuinely terrifying. Like, there is something about her that makes me more afraid than even the Jackal, and I think it's because the Jackal, he doesn't care about people, and he is deeply cruel and selfish and empty. But he doesn't seem to, like, delight in torture in the sadistic way that she does. And I might be wrong about that. Obviously, like, he tortures people all the time. But, like, both sides seem to be doing that. And I don't know how much of that to assign to, like, I'm making an example of you, I'm sending a message, I'm doing what needs doing, and how much of that to be like, he's just entertained by it. It amuses him. I feel like it's different with him than Antonia, but I may be wrong about that. It's just the way that he has sort of talked about doing things that were really like eating people in the academy. There was never like any sort of gleefulness at the shit that he's done, any sort of like, yeah, and they cried out in pain and it was fun. It was like, I did what I needed to do, and now they hate me, but I'm just fucking winning, and they all seem to only care about winning. Evidently there's rules about that I didn't know. You know, so I don't know, guys. I'd be interested to hear what you think, whether or not he's like a true sadist like Antonia seems to be. So anyway, he's about to kill Darrow, and Mustang says the Sovereign will want him alive, and Cassius says, yes, you're right. Now, part of what's making me sort of be like, was this supposedly part of the plan? I'm so hopeful, you guys. I'm like clinging to this sad shred of an idea. But let's just say that it is all a pantomime here. Doing it in front of Antonia would make a lot of sense. Having it staged this way would make a lot of sense. Right? Like, I don't know. So there's a moment where Antonia just like shoves the barrel of the gun down Darrow's throat like enough that he throws up. That's the kind of stuff I'm talking about. I don't feel like the Jackal does that shit, you know? He takes the hand later as a trophy, but that's to send a message. That's in front of people. That's like a moment of victory. This is just her and him. This is her liking that, you know? It just doesn't feel the same to me. So they get into the thing, and oh my God, I'm so sorry. Cassie is saying, I don't recall a character named Rasper. First of all, I'm a real dodo. I made that up. Clearly, I just misread Reaper, which is so... There is something about that you guys, I fully, like, this is the second time I'm reading through it, and the first time I also didn't think that it was Orion he was speaking to. There's something about that that's written a little confusing to my brain for some reason. But also, I think I already said Devereaux I'm putting into, like, my back pocket to use. I think Rasper also is going to be a name that I use for something. I kind of like it now. Then Cassie says, Mustang says he doesn't really see people he is hurting as people. So can you be sadistic toward things? That's interesting. I think maybe that's it. That's at the bottom of it. Antonia sees them as people, and that's what she likes. People have emotions. People can be harmed. People can be hurt in a way things can't. So I don't even think it's about that for him. You know, I think that is the difference. It's like sadism, there's still a connection between you and the person you're doing the things to. And that doesn't mean that you're like, you have empathy or anything, but there is like a sort of give and take of like emotional reaction. And I don't feel that from Severo at all. He is like cut off. Maybe I'm just, I don't know. So they get brought into this fucking little capsule that they're going to go out in. Of course, the whole way is cleared for them. And then Cassius is on there saying, the morning night, I've escaped. I'm requesting escort. And he's like, I have fucking Darrow. I killed Ares and I have his body. I got back Antonia. I've even got Mustang. Like, this is like the tastiest package of treats that their side could ever ask for. I mean, it doesn't get more tempting than this. It's every important person. Guys, I can't tell you how much I'm like clinging desperately with my fingernails to this not being real. I'm so untrusting anymore. Oh, these books have done my head in, as the Brits say. So, boots thud toward my container. The top opens and Cassius hauls Mustang out. Then he hauls me out and tosses me to the ground. So, Aja is here. I was wondering when we were going to fucking hear from her again. She's alive and she's back with her people. And Antonia is disgusted at the fact that Cassius is like, I still don't want any of you touching he calls her Virginia. It's always weird to me because every time he says Virginia, I'm like, who? And then, oh, right, Mustang. But yeah, he is very paranoid about harm coming to her and makes it an explicit deal with Aja that she not be harmed. And it's really clear a little bit later that there's like, that's so tenuous. There's a lot of what Aja is agreeing to that anybody higher up says, nah, then Aja's word is meaningless. You know, like he's doing his best to ensure Mustang's safety, but there isn't anything except people's word to rely on with this. So, this whole thing is so... Yeah, okay. Antonia joins Lilith, who stands before us in black armor. A screaming gold skull on either shoulder and another in the center of the breastpiece. Down her sides are human rib bones embedded in the armor. The first bone rider, LOL, in all of her barbaric finery. Later on, we see Jackal has Ares' bones as his rib bones, and that sends Darrow a little bit over the edge, which is remarkable because things are quite bad. And for that to have really been the extra thing that pushes him, I found really interesting. It's the sort of thing, you guys, that like I have a hard time quite relating to. I have to sort of put myself in the mindset of like, what if somebody killed Owen and did something with his bones? But I really do divorce the body from the person after a point. And so as much as I would understand that they were trying to do something like grotesque and profane, I don't feel like it would hit me the way it might hit a lot of people. Because there comes a point where that's not part of a person you cared about anymore, you know? So I can divorce that. It's sort of like the same as I don't exactly feel the need to visit my father's grave. His body is there, but that gravestone, it's not like he picked that out. He didn't pick out this plot. He never spent time in this cemetery. None of this relates to him. His body is there, and that's the only thing. And that isn't enough for me because that's not who he was, his body. You know what I mean? So I always find it interesting to see how people react to this stuff because it's like, it's one thing to see a body that has been like recently dead and to feel like that's my person that I care about because they still look like themselves, or perhaps there is evidence of how they were killed and that is like showing you that they suffered, and that has a whole other amount of baggage with it. But once it's beyond them appearing to be who they were to you, then it's sort of over for me. And so anyway, Darrow like flipping out about that, it caught me off guard because there has been so much for him to flip out about, and this is what did it. I was sort of like, thank you. You are very much more like interested in the symbolic than I am in some ways, Darrow, even though he is very practical nevertheless. So here comes this one dude who is trying to buy Severo's bones. He offers $100 million for one rib, which is bonkers. I don't even like. And Cassius is just like, this isn't my, like, his body belongs to the sovereign, not me. I don't get to make that call, and stop fucking asking me about it. And then Tactus says, will you have a rut? Is that what you mean? And he's apparently talking about raping Mustang, which, like, considering that Cassius has just said nobody harms her, I'm like, you know, are they trying to fuck with Cassius? Like, he's on your side. Why are you antagonizing him like this? You know, like, it just, none of these people, Cassius, are these your friends? Are these your friends? These are your people? Ugh. Anyway. Oh, yeah, here it is. Lilith says Barca is dead. I checked. That was a point where my all of my little hopes just, like, fluttered away. You guys. Anyway. No one will touch your prize, Lilith says, voice that eerie one note, except the Reaper. I'm to deliver him, we know, but my master requires compensation for past grievances. The sovereign granted him permission while you were landing. Precautionary measures. So, here comes the jackal. Meanwhile, Mustang is snarling at Cassius and is just like, I can't believe you're going to let them do this. You swore. Like, he swore on his father. And she spits at his feet. This guy, Tharsis, who is he to the group? Because he's mentioned as being the brother of somebody. And I was trying to find that spot in this scene. And I can't find, like, the description of who he's related to. Because he asks whether or not, like, he asks Darrow if he fucked his little brother. And it's a real weird moment that I was like, wait, his name is Tharsis. Is he it's not Barca, right? It's not like Sevro's brother. Because he calls him Besotted. So that's why I'm thinking that he's talking about Sevro. Oh, Ashley says Tactus brother. Oh. Interesting. I didn't realize that there was like a split within the family. Huh. Okay. So Lilith asks Pollux for a tourniquet. And of course, Darrow knows what this means. I know what this means. We all knew what this meant. And this is something that's so funny because, like, it seems obligatory somehow, right? In so many stories, your main loses a hand. It's just a thing that happens a lot. Meant to be a major, like, turning point. And it's difficult in this universe for me to feel about that the way I would in a different universe because, like, Darrow is built. He's been built from pieces. You know, like, he doesn't have any of his own original body anymore. So, and even, like, the muscle and stuff that he put on after recovering from the box, that wasn't muscle he put on naturally. That was a carver that got him back up to spec, basically. So I can't help but feel like, can they just, like, replace his hand? Can they just do that? I wouldn't be surprised if they could. There's, of course, they have, like, the what do you call them? The mechanical ones. And they're expensive, but he would have access to that in a different scenario. But I'm talking about, like, a full-on flesh replacement. And so, as much as this was horrifying, I was sort of like, I don't know how permanent this even is. I don't know how to think of this, you know? So, when the Jackal comes in, I love this. I told the Jackal I didn't hate him. That was a lie. Thank you. I'm glad to hear it, Darrow, because I was sort of like, don't you? In the moment, I was willing to give it to him, but I definitely had like a, really? You know, that kind of, and he has the same thing with like the ribs pushed into the armor, embedded in it. And he looks at Sevro's body and is glad that the bones are intact because, of course, something is going to happen to those. And he goes up to Mustang and says, "It's us against the world. Do you remember telling me that?" And she says, "No." I thought somebody's saying, like, "Do you remember?" And another person saying, "No." That's not usually how it goes. Usually they'll, like, say yes, and then they'll try to excuse why it's fine now or different now. Or they'll say it, like, very begrudgingly and unwillingly. And she just says no, and that's just so rare. And he says, "We were young. Mother had just died. I couldn't stop crying. And you said you'd never leave me. But then Claudius would invite you somewhere, and you'd forget all about me. And I'd stay home in a big old house and cry because I knew even then I was alone." It's so interesting that he's thinking, like, you said you'd never leave me, but then you went and did stuff with our brother, which proves that you're a liar. And it's like, she didn't mean, like, literally never leave your side, but evidently that's how you took it, which points to somebody who is much more desperate and clinging, like, mentally than I would have expected. And it's just very revealing about him in a way that I don't think he intends with this story. But it's truly like, it gave me a real pause of like, wow, you really believe that? And that is completely like impractical and unjustified. But you don't seem to even really see that. And there's something about that I kind of like. Because that desperation in him, you know, I don't know. These next hours are going to test who you are as a person, sister. I'm excited to see what's beneath all the bluster. I don't know what that means, but I don't like it. So, this is when he reveals the ribs that were Fitchner's. One of the ribs shows a helmet with a spiked sunburst. Another rib shows a head in a box. So that's what he's had, like, carved into them, which just feels to me a little on the nose, but I guess. Darrow says, I'm going to skin you, and he's like, whatever, dude, put the fucking muzzle back on this guy, I don't want to hear it. And then he goes on over to Antonia, and it turns out they've been fucking, and Darrow knew it. It says, sometimes I'd smell her on him as he came to visit me before the box. Or she'd drag a nail along his neck as she passed. The two of them fucking has to be some of the most twisted sex that's ever happened. Like, right? That's gotta be... I don't even... no. And she doesn't like the fact that he's, like, really looking at her face. And she says, I'll have it fixed. Don't worry. And he says, why fixed? It's disgusting. Disgusting. My dear, scars are what you are. They tell your story. This is Victor's story, not mine. You're still beautiful. He pulls her down gently by her chin and kisses her lips delicately. He doesn't care for her. Like Mustang said, we're just sacks of meat to him. But while Antonia's as wicked a thing as I've ever met, she wants to be loved, to be valued. The jackal knows how to use that. I am so curious if she, like, will just not get it fixed because she's so vain. Darrow says that she mourned the loss of her face more than the death of her mother. And if she is willing to forego getting her face fixed because, I keep saying Severo, because the jackal likes it, that is her giving him a power over something that is so important to her that it really says a lot. And I'd be very interested to see how that goes. Because, like, her teeth are broken. At least get those fixed. Like, Jesus, you know? I don't know. And also, Darrow saying, like, she wants to be loved and valued. Does she? It's so hard for me to believe that. I don't see that in her. You know, this is the first time I've ever seen any sort of real connection between her and anyone else. So, I don't know, man. I don't know. So Antonia hands him Severo's pistol, and he's impressed with it. The hilt is engraved with howling wolves, so he takes it as a trophy. And then he gets a call from an Imperator, the Ash Lord, that I think was the person Darrow was talking to earlier. But maybe I'm wrong about this. The enemy is underway, torch ships in front. They're coming for him, Cassius says. How many, the jackal asks. More than 60, half bearing the red fox. Do you wish me to spring the trap? Not yet, I will assume command of your ships. You know the arrangement. I do. You are to continue to join the Sovereign as planned. Escort the Morning Knight and his package to the Citadel. My daughter will take custody of him there. Go now, for gold. For gold. The head disappears. So, the jackal's got some obsidians, who he refers to as slaves. Attend to Praetor Lycinus on the bridge. You are no longer needed. And then he says, the Morning Knight has given us an opportunity to win this war today. The Telemonuses will come for my sister. The Howlers and the Sons of Ares will come for the Reaper. They will not have them. It is upon our shoulders to deliver them to our sovereign and her strategists in the citadel. Set aside your little grievances. He says this to Antonia and Cassius. Today we are gold. We can bicker when the rising is ash. Most of you lived the darkness of the caves with me. You watched by my side as this creature stole what was ours. They will take everything from us, our homes, our slaves, our right to rule. Today we fight to keep what is ours. Today we fight against the dying of our age. They lean into his words, awaiting his orders hungrily. It's terrifying to see the cult he's built around himself. He's taken bits of me, of my speaking pattern, and transposed it into his own behavior. He continues to evolve. I found that so fascinating. Like, of course, why not? You see that something's working for somebody to the point that they're becoming like a legend in their own time. Yeah, I can understand why you might take some of that and try and, turn it into the way you do things. Like, I'm not even on... I don't hold anything against Jackal for that, to be perfectly honest. That seems like the smart thing to do. But it's really fascinating to see him doing it in front of Darrow, and I wonder if he knows Darrow's clocking it. I don't think he cares. Doesn't matter. But I do wonder, like, is he aware? Like, how aware is he that he's doing it? I think he's very aware. I think it's very calculated and purposeful. Does he care that Darrow notices? Not only do I think he doesn't care, but I think probably he's enjoying Darrow realizing that he's stolen, like, this speech patterns and stuff. Like, he's rubbing it in a little bit, being like, see, I could do this too. Like, there's something very, like, taking that and perverting it to the opposite side of things. So, yeah, I think this is all on purpose. So, he tells Lilith, stay with the fleet. You're my insurance plan. Antonia's not sure what they're talking about, and she doesn't like it one bit. Interesting. Like, is she jealous of Lilith, or is it just her being left out of the plans? I wasn't sure. So, finally, he's like, to business. Oh, okay. Cassie says... Ash Lord is Asia's father, different from Lucius Aussagene. Okay, different person. He gives a razor to Cassius and is like, cut his hand off. And Cassius tries to argue that the Severo wants him in one piece, and Jackal's like, yeah, and he'll be in one piece, but she doesn't want him to have his fucking sword hand. So do this, unless there's a problem. Now, guys... I'm thinking we're going to have something similar happen as when Fitchner was told to cut off Darrow's head. Devereaux. I'm doing it. I'm fucking saying it. That you entrusted this task to somebody whose loyalties are less certain than you think. And this is going to give Darrow an out. Even as I thought that, I was like, are we doing this again, though? That doesn't really seem like this writer. It almost feels like he's setting it up that we're doing this again because he wants us to think we're doing that again so that he can just not do that again. And it turns out that was correct. I really believed up until the last moments that Cassius wouldn't do it. I was at about 60-40. A healthy amount of me expected him to, but more really thought we'll find a way out of this. The only reason that I thought there was a likelihood of him doing it was because I knew that solving a missing hand in this universe is a much simpler problem, obviously, than a fucking beheading. So I was like, actually, this is something that you could go through with it. And it's still, a horrific moment, but it's a obstacle that you can overcome eventually. And And Cassius, like, his hesitation, you know, all of this, it does feel like Mustang is saying, is this what you've become? Look at me. No, she's saying this to Cassius, and then she looks at Darrow and says, look at me. Cassius looks ashamed of himself when he does it, but he still does it. I can see the jackal picking my hand up from the ground and holding it in the air. His newest trophy. Hic sunt leonis, he says, and his men echo that back. Here be lions. So that is the end of chapter 59. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, the next episode of coverage is the rest of the book. Am I right about that? I'm just going to check real quick. Yeah, up to 62. Did you guys commission... Is there a book after this? I can't remember, actually, what you guys told me. Because I'm seeing that the next episode on the 9th is the last one scheduled. And I don't know if it's because Candace has not yet added it to the schedule on Crowdcast, or if it hasn't been commissioned yet. Ashley says there are, but it's a second series. Oh, okay. Okay. Interesting. Huh. I wonder how that works. Is it a different POV? Lots of questions about that. Okay. Well, I guess I'll have to just wait and see what you guys want to do. I would really like to read them, but you know, I can't believe that we're at the end of this book though, guys. Please let this not be real. Please let it all be blood packs that were in his shirt that exploded, and Cassius is in on it, and it's all a ruse. I can't decide how much I really want that and how much I would feel like that was a cop-out. I genuinely can't decide. You know, I'm very 50-50, which is pretty rare for me. Ashley says, we already have the breakdown for Iron Gold ready to go for commissioning. Oh, shit. All right. Well, I guess you guys will have to get on that. There'll be a gap anyway in coverage because I think I'm booked into, looks like September at this point. But, you know, if it's a whole new series, that kind of gap doesn't hurt as badly in terms of my memory because we'll probably be starting with a whole, not necessarily a new cast of characters, although maybe, but you know what I mean? It's not like I'm having to keep everything in mind from the previous book necessarily the same way that I would if it's part of the same series. You guys, I really kind of want to start reading the next chapter on live, but I'm not going to do it. I did it once. I can't do it all the time. But I will be reading this right away as soon as I end this recording. So just know that. All right, guys. Thank you so much. I really appreciate all of y'all coming and hanging out here. You know what? Did I actually say thank you to the person who commissioned this episode, Cassie? Did I give you credit for this one? I don't think I did. So thank you, Cassie, for commissioning this. I really appreciate you. Yeah, guys, I just the support means a lot. It's always wild when I step back and be like, people are paying me to read and talk about it. How lucky am I? But it wouldn't happen without y'all. So thank you all so much. All right. I will be seeing you on the 9th. Until then, toodaloo, motherfuckers.
That was an Unspoiled Network podcast.